Hey there, Chris. How you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Well, I don't have anything muted. I'm good.
Can you
I
hear me
heard
now?
something. There you are.
Yeah. Hey, how's it
All
going?
right. I love it. We can get started. How's it going, brother?
All right, not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Well, let me introduce you, I guess. I'm still getting used to doing these interviews. I was just editing one from earlier and I'm thinking there's nothing to edit here. I think I'm just going to leave it all in there. So, uh, I'm getting used to it now, but it's still a new thing to be able to talk to people like this. But I just want to introduce you. This is Chris Hackard that's here with me today. He was one of the viewers of my channel. Do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
I don't have YouTube, some Instagram stuff, but I usually am not posting too many videos. I have a Patreon too, but that's kind of here or there. I don't really pay too much attention to it.
Go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you here.
Um, well, I've been oh man, this kind of goes back a few months. I started
We're having audio problems. I think I lost you.
stop drinking and just are you
It cut
okay?
out almost
If this
completely that
keeps
whole
acting,
time.
I'll log right back in because it's acting kind of funky.
Okay,
All right, I'll be right back.
no problem. All right. Well, we can see you again. I think I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, a lot better. Yeah, I was trying my tablet on that because it has a better camera. This one's it's old. It's a really old laptop, but I figured this would probably be a better connection.
All right. Well, you were going to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Uh, where to start? uh, I Do you want me just to talk about my journey so far, or a history of who I am, or
Well, I
what I'm
mean,
about, or
you could go into what brought you to this diet, but I mean, it's probably going to get into a little bit of what you were doing before too, because I find it isn't just about diet sometimes. A lot of times it affects a lot of other areas of our lives. But whatever it is about this diet that's remarkable enough for you to want to email me, some guy on YouTube, and have a conversation with about it, that's what I want to get at.
um well, like I said, I'll go back to like in February. I had just gotten out of the doctor's office, and they had informed me that my blood pressure was too high, that I was going to have to be on meds. So she had prescribed me meds, and a kind of an eye-opening experience was right after that. I went out and I got some really bad food because that's what you do when you're kind of emotional.
Yeah.
So, and while I was sitting there eating my burritos, I was like, "What am I doing?" I just sort of like shook myself out of it. And then I had been following Dr. Siwas, the carb addiction doc, a little bit,
Mm.
and he
What's his
always
name?
talked about kind of get Dr. Siwas. He's or Sivas, I think it's Sivas. Carb addiction doc. He's on YouTube.
Okay.
I always try to boost him a little bit because he sort of got me thinking about the root of why I was overeating and what I was doing and why I was eating so badly in the past. Uh, and it just sort of sunk home at that moment. I'm like, if I'm going to continue doing this, I'm just going to continue being overweight. I'm going to have to be on all these meds. So I opted to. I told my doctor the next day, hey, let me give diet and exercise a try to see if I can lower my blood pressure. And she was on board with it. She's actually a really good doctor for being primary care. And So then I spent the next couple of months trying to work in like a low carb plant based diet. And it didn't really work. I was experiencing a lot of issues, kind of like what you're experiencing, where it was just like stomach upset. And I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on. And so I noticed that we have like a small snack shop at my work. And so I would go by there and get some boiled eggs every morning there for a while. And I just noticed on those days when I was eating some eggs, I'm like, I just feel a lot better.
Okay.
And I from there I just started to scale back on certain foods and finding some that didn't affect me quite as bad. And in this process of those 2 months, my doctor was like, "You're going to go and get uh, um, more blood work done," because she was actually wanting to check that the blood pressure medication was working. And so at that time, I was still kind of eating plant-based, but I was slowly transitioning over to eggs and like beef and things of that nature. And then that next blood test that came around, my blood pressure had normalized. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And my blood work, everything in my blood work started pointing in the right direction. So let me rewind back a few years when I'd started going completely plant-based because my wife's vegan.
How old are you now, by the way, and how old were you when you started doing that?
Okay, so plant-based, I was about 8 years ago. So I'm 51 now.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, and I tried all different forms of it, and all the vegans say, oh, you're not doing it right. So there were times, a year's time, where I did all whole food, plant-based, as strict as you could do it. And yeah, my blood work never looked that great, even on medication, because I was not only on medication, I was on medication for high cholesterol and high triglycerides and low HDL, all these things. And looking back through all my blood work, going back many years, I had always noticed that I had high blood sugar and was probably considered pre-diabetic for a lot of that time. But my doctors never seemed to, it was never a red flag.
Right.
And so I was kind of like, well, I just followed their advice, continue on with the meds. They were always be like, well, you're just getting older. You hear all those same excuses. This is just what old age is, and you've got family history of high cholesterol, all those things. And so I kind of did that for a number of years, and I was just getting worse and worse. And then the high blood pressure was just the final red flag where I'm like, something's not right. Something is just not working, and I need to do something differently. Uh, and so, yeah, I just started slowly phasing out some of those foods. I'm not carnivore by any means, probably more ketovore these days, uh, where I eat a red meat or grass-fed, grass-finished beef, try to get pasture-raised eggs if I can find them. Sometimes that's difficult. My supplier that I was getting eggs from has changed who they're getting their eggs from, so I don't know if I'm going to go back to them. And some nuts, excuse me, and some like seasonal stuff. Like in New Mexico, where I live, they have green chili. So I'm like, well, not gonna give up green chili.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't phase me in any way.
My
So
wife's
that's
big on doing that kind of thing. I get exactly what you mean. She
yeah,
wants to make sure it's seasonal, and she's trying to do it more of a ancestral way, even for eating plants, which, that's the argument I hear a lot, is everybody's trying to say that it's not ancestral to eat that. And I think, well, I think it's a little of both, but
yeah.
my situation's different. That's why I try to explain it to people. And I know yours is a little different. So that's why I'm glad to have some different viewpoints on here. And when you
Oh
had
yeah.
your initial test, that was when it got real for you. You were slowly being pulled into this. Yeah, you're getting older. Just get used to getting medicine stuff. And then when you got that wake up shock for hypertension, that's when you said, okay, I got to do something different.
Yeah, it was that and the high blood pressure. And that's the the interesting thing is that I was on a pretty low salt diet, low fat, low salt, uh, and everything they tell you to do to kind of reverse high blood pressure,
Yeah.
and it wasn't working. And so then that's when I was, watching some videos and the carb addiction doc, and he talked about how blood sugar actually affects your blood pressure more. And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so as soon as I started like kind of swapping it out, I cut out all sugar, even fruit. And that seemed to be where things changed. And before that, I was eating, like dried mangoes and every kind of fruit you could get a hold of. I
Yeah.
really tried to stay whole food, but yeah, it just didn't work. And it works for my wife, but doesn't seem to work for me very well. So, um, and then that's kind of where I went from there. And then since then, I've just been feeling better, exercising more. Uh, um,
What's the
yeah.
status on your blood pressure diagnosis?
So last time I had it checked at the doctor, it was normal, and it's been normal now for like 6 months. Ever since, excuse me, I need to get some water.
And you're not
Um,
taking any medication anymore.
no medication. I never started medication.
Okay,
I
good.
told him I didn't want to do that. I'd rather try and control it via diet and exercise. So as soon as she saw my blood pressure normalize, um, she's like, "Yeah, you don't need the medication." So I was like, "Okay." And then probably 3 or 4 months into there, I was like, "Okay." I watched enough videos about statins and all this, and I don't tell people to, get off your meds. Always consult with your doctor. But
Right.
I kind of was like, I'm just not going to take them anymore, and I'm going to see how this next blood panel comes out. And so that started about 4 months ago. Felt great. I've It's sort of amazing to me. You don't really realize how bad you feel in the past until you start to really feel good on a consistent basis. And that is kind of where I'm at now. Like even on a bad day where I'm like, gosh, I'm just not feeling it, or I get a little bit of a headache, it's nothing compared to the way it was in the past. Uh, my skin cleared up. Uh, just so many things. Joints don't ache anymore. It's sort of weird because you're kind of going against the paradigm out there
How
of
about weight
what.
loss?
Oh, weight loss. Yeah, I weighed 237 pounds in February. As of this morning, I was 194. Sorry, not 294. So yeah, quite a bit. And I'm still considered overweight. Um, but I'm getting there. I'm no, there's no
Hey,
like
that's at least
real.
like 40 pounds down already, right
Oh
there.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you picked up something 40 pounds since you lost that much weight and thought, I carried this everywhere.
yeah. Yeah, I've been curling like 32 pounds, and I'm like, nah, that's probably what I was, carrying around all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's
pretty
sort of
shocking
amazing.
when I feel that when I feel the weight vest that I go walking in and it's getting lighter, I'm getting used to it. So I guess it makes it easier to accept that knowledge. But that first time you put it on, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of weight. And I had lost double the weight that I had in the weight vest when I first put it on at 40 pounds. So it is remarkable when you start to really feel the changes that come from this, at least in my case with that much weight loss. But 40 pounds is still nothing to sneeze at. Um,
Yeah, and when what happened too, about the time I was looking at videos from the carb addiction doc and Ken Berry and all the people out there, yours popped up in my feed. And so that's when I started following your videos. And I kind of was looking for somebody who had been going through the process, who kind of had similar things going on in their life, and to see how they were progressing. And I think that's why your videos are meaningful. You're just trying, you're going through it, and you're talking about like, hey, I'm not sure about this, not sure about that, but you try it out, and it's nice to see other people doing that.
yeah.
um, I've never thought about sharing anything online. i'm I'm not very comfortable in front of the camera.
Well, I'm
So
glad you're here at least doing this because it's going to
yeah.
help other folks understand exactly what we're going through and that it's very easily attainable. And it's not like, I don't know, for me it was always something. It's like, oh boy, here we go. We got to find another way, another challenge, another fad diet, another something that's going to help me deal with this health problem that I've been fighting all my life. And all I wanted to do was eat the same food other people were eating and try to be healthy too, and maybe cut out some of it, but it always seemed to be a bridge too far to get healthy. And when I got that wake up call from the doctor, that's how I felt too. It was just, My real wake up call was that they couldn't solve my problems, but I mean, it started when they told me my liver was having trouble. So that
Oh,
when I started saying, okay, I got to start looking at what to do here. And I think that was why when I heard Jordan Peterson talk about his diet change, that it just went, that's it. That's what I'm missing.
yeah,
And
that's pretty big transformation with Jordan and his daughter. I've watched a few videos on that. It's always kind of interesting and um, it's I don't know. It's really
so
good videos, good set of videos.
your girlfriend, your wife, what, she's a vegan still, or?
Yeah, my wife is vegan. Many years ago, we sort of went down that path. Initially, I was just trying to get healthier. I'd been battling high cholesterol back in the past. The doctors are like, oh, that's just this, they line up a bunch of things that they say you need to do. So you kind of go down that road. And I thought, well, this might be a, a way to solve that problem. And we started out vegetarian, ovo-lacto vegetarian, and that was okay. It wasn't bad. And then we were eating some fish too, so probably pescatarian. I don't know. There's so many different definitions
Yeah.
of that. Uh, and then she kind of got involved with the vegan just groups. She just kind of got like a friend set, and I don't know, it just never resonated with me. Even though I was eating plant-based, the whole ideology and dogma behind it kind of was just not my thing. So I kind of was always on the outskirts and just sort of doing it for her and thinking that it was going to improve my health. But looking back on it now, it just never really did. Those things never materialized, and through those years of going through all that, there were cancer scares and other issues that popped up. So I'm always, I don't know, I'm a little skeptical sometimes of some of those claims, and I'll push back when I hear them. Uh, and I'm not going to force her to change. That's her friend group and her stuff. But one of the harder things I had to do was come out and tell her I wasn't going to be plant-based anymore. And it was just, I'm like, look, I've got to do it for my health, or I don't know how long I can keep going on. And the blood pressure thing, and plus with COVID going on, it just didn't make sense. So, and everything I had done up to that point was starting to point me in this direction. So, and I'm sure she's not too thrilled about it, but it is what it is. We're two separate people. So
Okay, I understand. I didn't want to pry too much because I know it can get
no,
sensitive,
that's
but
good.
it's good to know that you guys can, the ideology isn't going to step in the way of you fixing your health. And, if it's working for her, it's one of the reasons I tell people on the channel, so I'm not dogmatic about
Yeah.
anything. I know everybody's a little bit different. But I'm not an expert enough on the human body to say that everybody's going to thrive on this or everybody's going to thrive on that. All I know is if you find something that works for you, stick with it. And
Oh
mom,
yeah, sure.
dude, make sure it is working for you. You can get the idea that you're doing something healthy, maybe because you removed something bad. But if you're not getting something you do need, you want to look into that too. So that's why even I've looked into iodine again, and I started to look at potassium and magnesium a little bit closer. I don't know that I've seen much difference even adding those yet. I'm still really doing some testing in that. But I encourage people, find out what makes a difference. When you get it narrowed down to something healthy and you start to feel better, try some of the other things that are healthy, or look for what nutrients you're not getting and see if you can add those in.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you guys have worked that out pretty well.
Yeah, for the most part. Like I said, she's probably not too thrilled about it, but she told me when I mentioned that to her, she's like, well, if this works for you and you've got to do it, then go ahead and do it. I'm like, okay. So we we kind of uh make it work.
Yeah. Mutual respect is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So for sure. And it's funny that you mentioned the iodine thing, because one of your videos about iodine hit me right about at a point where I was about, I forget when that video came out, but right about that time you mentioned itchy skin, and I was having a bout of itchy skin, and you talked about the iodine, and so I was like, well, this is weird. I wonder if that's what it is, and I did the test on my arm, and yeah, I was low in iodine. So I narrowed it down to what happened was probably we were eating so many before I went down this path. I was eating so many foods that were probably high in sodium, probably high in iodized salt. It was never an issue. And then when I got to the point where I was eating most, in fact, whole food, and then like ruminant meat and eggs and Redmond's real salt and things of that nature, I probably cut back on the iodine and didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And then once I added it in, yeah, that went right away. And
And
I'm
you
like,
were
oh,
having
okay, that's
fish before that too, so fish would be a good source of iodine.
yeah. And I had stopped actually having
Yeah,
fish, and that's when it popped up. So
right.
now, yeah, I have sardines too. I try to have those during the week, and yeah.
Well, some good
So
news. I do plan to update some of that too, because I've ordered a test that I can actually do the urine test for checking for the iodine levels, and hopefully I'll get a even clearer look. But it's great to have this extra information that you had actual symptom reduction by adding some iodine. How much are you doing?
and then that's just it. I don't add it every day.
Okay.
It's Bill, and now because of the sardines and eggs, I think I don't have to add it as much. But every once in a while, I'll add a drop or two to my water, and then that's about it. And then if I start to notice like a little itchiness, then I go, oh, I probably am. And I have some scars and stuff, so I'll put the topical iodine on. And if
Mm-hmm.
I notice it go away pretty quickly, then I'm like, oh, I'm probably a little low. But yeah, ever since then, it was kind of interesting because I'm like, I wonder, and I added it, and it went away, and I'm like, okay, that's telling. So, and as far as meds and supplements, I've cut back on everything but magnesium, and I just take one little magnesium pill at night, and that's more for leg cramps because I always seem to get leg cramps when I'm just, I don't know if it's a ketosis thing or if it's just low carb, but that'll get me in the middle of the night. So the magnesium keeps that at bay. And then niacinamide is another one, and that's just because it's got a reduction. It There's some tests where I had a superficial basal cell removed from my shoulder last year, and there's some tests that say if you take niacinamide, it will reduce the reoccurrence. So those are the only two I take on a regular basis.
Yeah,
So
well, everybody's got to try what they think's going to work.
yeah,
So I don't ever dissuade anybody from giving something a try. I do tend to think most of the stuff in GNC is just snake oil and you're just going to
yeah,
pee it out, but I haven't written it
yeah,
off altogether. Um,
yeah. And those are the only ones. And it's like I look at it, is it giving me benefit? I don't know. It's relatively cheap. If so, I'd rather have that than have them cut another basal cell off of me. So can't hurt.
right.
But
And I guess since you've been doing mostly ketovore, haven't really experienced a whole lot of social difficulty where it can be hard to get what you want to eat, or has it been difficult when you're eating in mixed company?
uh not really. No. I don't go out to eat very often. Uh that's part of it. But even when I do, most of the people I know and most of the friends I'm around um are cool with it. We'll just go to a steakhouse or something. Or I think one morning we went to this place that had pasture raised eggs, so I just had eggs. Now if I'm with my wife and her friends, I'll eat before I go. And maybe just have like a salad or something very small. And I don't, or not at all. I won't have anything.
You're eating out less, I would assume,
Yes.
now than you used to before, and that's
Oh
probably
yeah.
not only a
Oh, by
savings,
far.
but you're have you found the food's better?
Uh, like when eating
Any
out,
taste
or
and any taste and flavor itself, if you had any taste and change in your taste palette.
oh, yeah, like if we go out to a steakhouse, I can definitely tell that they add seasoning to it.
Yeah.
Uh, Eating steak and eggs at home, that's what I would rather do. Just because I know where it's come from and how to cook it, and I get it just right, and there's no extra stuff in there. Um, but yeah, taste buds, when people say, oh, the only reason you like steak is because you had salt to it, I sometimes don't put that much salt on it, and I'll just eat it because I like the way it tastes. Uh, it's yeah, but I've been weird since I was a kid. I used to,
Yeah.
I was never like
Me
I
too.
would eat, yeah, I would eat like hamburgers with nothing on them and like the meat, cheese, and the bread. That was it. That's all I wanted.
Oh,
And
I was the
any,
opposite in that area. I've been weird since I was a kid, but I always wanted all the whatever they could throw on there.
yeah, I was like the exact opposite. I probably had like a super taster or something when I was a kid because man, sometimes that stuff would just be too overpowering. So that's probably why like eating the way I do now doesn't phase me at all. Um, but yeah, I kind of noticed the nuance in things. Probably the biggest thing is coffee. You can tell when you get really good coffee and really bad coffee. And before, when it was always like with creamer or with sweetener, and I didn't really like sweetener that much, it just would cover up any bad coffee. So,
Well, it sounds like you've really turned your health around, and it had a lot to do with the plant getting away from plant based and going to an animal based diet. And I'm glad that you're doing better. Is there
oh
anything
yeah.
else you'd like to add? That because I only have a few minutes left in the time block, but I'd like to know if there's something important that you'd like to convey about how the change has affected you.
Um, Probably the most part for anybody who's watching, give yourself some time and patience and room. Don't I see a lot of people jumping in the deep end right away. And I think that sometimes can be frustrating when you're not, you see you'll lose a bunch of weight and then it stops or it plateaus. If you give yourself time, those changes will happen. You've just got to kind of give yourself that room. And if you've got problems where overeating is a problem, learn to forgive yourself, and get to the root of why you were eating the way you were eating.
Mm,
That's probably the biggest thing that changed for me, was why am I eating the way I'm eating, and why am I doing this? Why do I continually go back to it? And it didn't matter whether it was plant-based or standard American diet. And once I kind of got to the root of those issues, it sort of made everything else fall into place. Uh, but yeah, definitely give yourself some time and patience, um, and reach out to people like yourself. And I reached out to Ken Berry here recently and talked to him about my blood results. I didn't think he'd get back to me, and he did. And it was kind of nice to just get a little encouragement. Keep doing what you're doing. Your body takes time to heal, and it'll get there. And
yeah.
so, and that's another thing to remember, is that you didn't get to where you were in bad health overnight, and you're not going to get to good health overnight. So you've got to give yourself some space.
All right. Well, that sounds real good. Well, I'm glad you're doing so well, brother.
I'm glad you're doing well. I like to see your videos every day. They're always an uplifting, uplift to my day.
Well, I hope your story helps other people too, and helps uplift everyone else, because that's what I do this for. I want to be able to encourage others to have the best life they can possibly have. We only get one shot at this world. Let's do the best we can with it, and let's treat
I agree
ourselves good so we can treat those we love good, and just spread that.
for sure. Yeah, 100%.
Hey, man, it's been great talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Take care.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
I appreciate you coming on. I just wanted to add a little personal side to it, because I always feel like when the first time I did one of these, it just ended and we were done talking, and it felt really strange. But I just wanted to let you know, and I'm just like you, just trying to make it through this world. And I think if we can help each other the way we're doing right now, that it's going to be a better place for everyone.
Oh yeah, for sure. And feel free to edit all that, because I'm sure I'm not that good on camera. There's probably a
It's
lot of things
fine.
in there you can cut out.